Hey, this is Anney
and Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
So we're back on part 2 of friendships. And if you didn't listen to the early one, I guess you're okay. You're okay. Because you could go back after listening to this one. But if you want to come in like a chronological order, I would say go back. Because we're going to jump in. We just kind of talked about childhood stuff. And now we're going to talk about adult stuff. So what does, or how has it changed rather, this friendship thing as adults? What is it like today?
Well, Samantha, I can tell you.
Tell me.
I will say a lot of people have done so much research on this. See our part 1, but this whole idea of making friends as adults. How does that happen? How does that work? Oh, no one can do it. So yeah, people have looked into, has our changing times impacted what friendship looks like today? And yeah, not in every way, but in a couple of important ways. So there has been a shifting understanding of what women's friendships look like. Here's a quote from Elle. Then things started to change. She began dropping plans with me to do things with whomever she was seeing instead. Always a man, of course. I didn't get it. Why would hanging out with some guy she barely knew be more important than plans with me? To her, disregarding my feelings to promote romantic ones with someone else was a totally fine thing to do. When I got mad at her for spontaneously going with a guy she'd been dating for 2 weeks to a local farm that we had talked about visiting for ages, she told me matter-of-factly, I was raised to look for the person who I am going to share my life with, and that's my priority. Okay, so obviously, for context, she's talking about a friend very close to her who she started noticing was dropping her for these kind of heterosexual relationships with men. And it further goes on where they get into a fight about it. And this friend said to her, it's like you think I'm your boyfriend or something. And so this article actually breaks down the history of queer coding friendships, because her friend was essentially saying, I'm not gay, okay? Like, the important relationship to me is the romantic one, not the platonic one. I do think something we've discussed a lot on this show, I think that's changing. I do think that women's friendships have been demonized for a while in media, and that has impacted real life friendships. But we've seen so many examples of these positive portrayals of friendships between women. And we've seen, I personally have seen a lot of media about like the commune, the ideal women just living in the commune together. All of those things. But I also think that I went through this. I'm sure a lot of you listeners did, but having that friend who used to talk about how we'll never be with boys, and then suddenly that's what they want. And you are, I used to call it the old toy on the shelf. That's how I felt. I was like the one they came to when there was no boy.
Right.
Then I was the person they contacted. And it's not a great feeling.
No. You knew when they were going through a break.
Yes.
If all of a sudden they wanted to hang out. And you're like, wait, oh, okay. Y'all broke up? Cool. Let's go. I will say, I think it's interesting because, again, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to relationships. So for me, it was all about my friends. And even coming later, I was like, if my friends don't like him, then we are not going to be cool probably, because I'm going to need that. You need to know, yes, you are important in my life, but my friends are too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be, if they need me, I'm going to drop whatever to go to there, if at all possible, unless it's like an emergency on my end. But my loyalty goes in both ways as well. But like my friendships always came first. Like, of course, being in a long-term relationship, so where we actually live together and have grown into a partnership, like he has slowly become my best friend. Like, he knows the most about me and he sees the most about me now. But when it was beginning, no. But even now, I still try to maintain my friendships. To be fair, it's because he also lives here. So it's easier to maintain my friendship with a person I live with. Am I right? But like all those things, like my friendships have always been important as well. And he also knows that. So he is also the first one to be like, they need you. Did you check up on them? What's going on with them? Like, he loves the gossip just as much as like they do. You know what I mean? Or any of those conversations, and following up, make sure they're okay. And he wants to know that they're okay. Like, that's the only way this relationship has worked, is because to him, that is also important. And he knows that's important. So he respects that and is a part of that. He's a part of the friend group and not like competing with the friend group, which happens a lot. Like, there are a lot of people that I'm like, okay, I don't like that person you're dating. I'm going to have to let you be.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll get into that in a second a bit more. But that is, I think that me and your partner, we're good friends. Mm-hmm. We hang out. We have a great old time. Like, when you're like,
the commonalities that you two have are wonderful. And I'm like, I'll go to bed. Y'all have fun.
Yeah. And I do think at least that's a visible way it's changed. I don't think that it's necessarily new, but a lot of these things we're talking about are more visible ways that it's changed, as opposed to, I think it was always happening. We just weren't like hearing about it as much.
And also, I think like we're learning from the older generations of women who has been ostracized, specifically women ostracized in their marriage, to feeling like my life has to be my children and my husband, and to being like, wait, don't do this to yourself. Because when they leave, you start kind of falling apart. Like, my mom didn't have many friends while she was a mother and a wife. But when everybody left, she was kind of like, oh, my best friend's my sister. And then her sister introduced her to a group of women, and they are doing more and more things together. I'm like, I love that. Great. But she kind of had a moment that she didn't have that, because her daughter was her best friend type of thing. And I think like she wouldn't say she regrets that. But I know a lot of the older generations, boomer generations, would say, I wish I'd kept in touch with my friends, or I wish I had, kept this going, because they felt really isolated and lonely after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was the same way. It was a strange experience when her and my dad were having such difficulties, where I'm her adult child, but I'm her child. And I was like, let me talk to you about these things. Mm-hmm. You can make friends. You've got life ahead of you. Right. You don't have to, it doesn't have to end here, mm-hmm. because this relationship has defined you for so long. And she has reconnected with her old friends.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Again, women outlive men statistically. So there's been a conversation about what that looks like as well for the older generations.
Yes. And as we said in the last episode and in previous episodes, friendship has positive health benefits, and women have more support systems after a divorce or breakup. Mm-hmm. And that does help. Something else I ran into in a lot of articles, women's friendships being framed as resistance, as power and strength. The ones who build you up, who give you strength, who help you grow and learn. So that touches on, as we were discussing, the friends who open you up to ideas you didn't know about, or just show you where you're lacking in your learning, or where you should really work on in that positive, I'm investing in you, I want you to grow way. And when we're talking about protest or resistance and all of that, and how exhausting all of it can be, having those friends who do help you keep going, who are the ones that show up with you at the protest or show up with you at whatever it is, that it is a form of resistance. And that is something is not new. It's not new at all. But it is something that I think has become more talked about visibly in recent years, and is extremely important. Mm-hmm. A recent study found that self-identified feminists were less likely to self-silence in their friendships with women, which we just talked about self-silencing.
Ooh, yes, we did.
Yes, and how that can be damaging to your health. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay, when it comes to marrying and marrying later, because women are marrying later in general, has it changed friendships? Okay. So many of these things we could do entire episodes on.
I know.
Here's the brief answer. Studies do show that marriage does impact friendships and often leads to a loss of friendship due to new priorities and scheduling constrictions. However, women are better at keeping friends after marriage as compared to men. And there are tips online about how to maintain friendships after marriage. And it echoes a lot of what we've been talking about in this two-parter, being intentional and consistent, including friends in new stages of your life while being mindful about boundaries and being honest. Yeah, as we talked about, sometimes life just gets in the way and you wait until you have the right time and proximity. And that's when you meet up again. But it definitely is something we've talked about before where like, oh, you're married now. You moved to the suburbs. That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I still want to see you. I won't do it. But.
Yeah, I would love to see you, but I also know you may have priorities with your husband, his family. You have new obligations. One of the things that I newly discovered is my partner's family that I actually really get along with, and like I consider now friends. Like there'll be a moment. We are, again, put this in preface, like ever thought of like if we break up, what happens? I think I would try to remain friends. With the siblings. I don't know if that's allowed or not, because it turns out we have a lot in common, not just poking fun at my partner, but a lot in common to the point that we buy same things because we're on the same wavelength of so many things. But like, I kind of love that. Like I get to build even more friendships. Again, he's friends with a lot of my friends and keeps in contact with them and knows about them, probably has their number as well. It's like can tell them happy birthday or are included in the celebrations in those moments. So like those are amazing. Like if you're, I think with the later friendships, we all see like we kind of get into a bigger group. So I have a lot of friends. I had friends who are married, like as a group of friends, like they were my friends. The two of them are my friends. I had two friends again. I had friends that marry within the friend group, which was like, oh no, but okay. And after some like rearranging of priorities, we became good friends. Like there's this level of like older generations that as we wait to get like in relationships, we mature. And I think for the most part, and this is not something that I've read yet, but my assumption is we're a little more mature and are able to make better decisions and usually thoughtful decisions at an older age because we've gone through a lot of things, whether it's we've been able to live on our own, so know how to take care of ourselves. We probably have a lot of our own stuff that we come together, we have to like shift through because we have too many of those adult things. And like, we don't need 15 pots. We only need 5. Calm down. Like type of conversations, but learning to work through that because we've already established ourselves socially in whatever realm. And so we come in with more friendships. Again, there can be dynamics where you don't like each other, the new significant other, but if everything goes as planned, hopefully with the better decisions, because I would think you would want to be partners with someone who, like your friends, are on the same wavelength? And that could be a question mark.
That's what the Spice Girls taught me.
And they are not wrong. It still stands strong. But with that, I think I think the waiting to, like, with all of those decisions, it's very conscious decisions.
Yeah, I think so too. And as we talked about in part 1, there is an intentionality in adult friendships that is not there necessarily in childhood friendships. So the older you get, as marriage is kind of delayed, I feel like you get that foundation of maybe your new adult friends before you get married. And then probably there's a meshing of meeting people in other friend groups of your spouse's friend group or whatever before that. So there is, I do think that probably has changed
right
how adult friendship looks.
And I mean, like, I've seen many of videos where people will say, go look at the partner's friend group, and it'll tell
Yeah.
you a lot about them. And I think that is like, those are warning signs or those are good signs. And I think that in itself can be a whole thing of like, oh, yeah, that's why we are together or we aren't together. That intention. Again, some people don't care. Some people don't care about the red flags. But I think more and more people do.
Yeah. And one thing I found interesting, according to Psychology Today, a lot of times the spouse or partner of a friend will be a passive friend and not an active friend, meaning that you find them pleasant enough, but don't go out of your way to make time for them. I feel that I've seen this a lot. Most of my friends, I'm on good terms with their partner.
Right.
But that makes sense to me. And the article I was reading in Psychology Today, she was like, this is the person I want to give my time to. If he is there, that's great, but I'm not going to seek him out separately.
Right.
But she is the person.
Yeah, there's no reason for me to talk to you.
Yeah, it's a timing issue.
Yeah.
Like, as we said, this is the person you want to make time for. You like this other person. You're not mad that they're there. But
you're not my intent.
Right. Yes. And there isn't too much research on this that I could find, but anecdotal stories online from newly divorced women report a loss of friendships after a divorce. The speculated reasons range from fear of grief, as in your friends don't want to deal with your grief, choosing one partner over the other, feeling threatened by a newly single woman, which I found interesting, and stigma, divorce stigma. On the other hand, I've spoken personally to several divorced women who bonded with other divorced women. So that's another instance where you might bond with someone.
Yeah. I've seen so many stories. I've seen many stories where people who have been cheated on by the same person becoming good friends.
Yes.
Those are my favorites, to be honest, because they're like, this is that girl level of like, oh, no, you, me, let's all just show up together. And now we're going to get drinks. Like that level of like, those are one of my favorites. Not that they got cheated on. I hate that for them, but they got at least a friendship out of it.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about before. I would much rather that happen than kind of the tearing down of the, quote, other woman, when usually it was the dude who
Look,
cheated.
I am that person being like, why are you giving so much grief to the woman? Is the dude is the common factor here. He's the enemy. Or the person that's cheating, rather. Sorry. Because women can cheat too, and do. Does having children change friendships? And I think you already know. I think most people already know. Yeah, unfortunately, it can. It can change, and friendships are lost. And it's nobody's fault. Again, it's everything about time and priorities. And a child being someone's priority is not a bad thing. Actually, it should be. It makes perfect sense as to be that. If you didn't have that child as a priority, I would be concerned and ask why you have a child.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it does absolutely. It can change a friendship. So there was an article in Essence where they talked to a coach, and I think she has her own podcast too, a friendship coach. Her name is Danielle Bayard Jackson, and she talks about what changes. And she says, there is research that shows a woman's physical makeup changes when she has a baby. Even your brain changes. I'm different. So that's going to change the way that I interact with people, the time I have available, and my priorities. It doesn't diminish the friendships that I had, but they are going to change. We have to stop seeing change as a sign that it wasn't real or that they were fake. So I think that's such a big conversation. It's like, things change, your priority changes, and it should. It absolutely should when it comes to being responsible for another human that you have brought into this world, whether it's adopted, whether it's, through your body, whatever, whatnot. Yes, you have new priorities, and it's going to be that child and not necessarily maintaining a friendship. Again, when we talk about the things where we might not see each other for days and days and days, months and months and years, but we can come back together and still enjoy it. Yes. But let's say having that child being a part of that social interaction, it's going to change the way you are interacting at that moment, whether it's you're going to try to be conscientious of what you're going to say in front of a child. You're also watching that the child is safe and okay and happy. And maybe you're doting and the friend's attention is going to be on the baby as well. Like, things do change no matter what. I don't think it's unfortunate, but it just happens. It will change, especially, again, I didn't look at the gender reference, but it's true for women, whether it's because of patriarchy expecting women to only care for the baby and take the baby with them everywhere or child with them everywhere, as opposed to having the father take care of it. Oftentimes, we also talk about the father just babysitting instead of actually caregiving.
Yeah.
And that's still a conversation that's up for debate, which is really, really annoying. And then there was this article from pnmag.com about parenthood. They said, motherhood is an all-encompassing mind and body consuming experience. It changes you. And that is what it's supposed to do. You navigate pregnancy. Then you have to figure out how to care for a tiny human. You're inundated with information from doctors, families, friends, websites, and books. But few people talk about how some of your close relationships may be impacted once you become a mom. And they go on to talking about that deeper level of understanding that this is your priority. This is what you live, eat, and breathe, especially the most formative years. There are things that you have to care for, and you should. That is parenthood, actually caring and loving the child. Of course, there are things of like also socializing children and adapting a child into normal behavior instead of adapting environment to the child. Like, that's also up for debate. Attachment issues are a thing, and having a good social circle is important as well. That's my social work side. We're not going to go into there, but just, put that out there as well. And that article actually goes on to talk about the child-free and mothers. So this is what it says. Dr. Holmes, who is one of the people they are interviewed for this article, further explains, I think there's a vast gap, if not divide, when it comes to women with children and child-free women. I was child-free until I had my daughter at 36 years old, and I was left out of many conversations about having children because that is what women often find ease in bonding over. I would not say that I felt left out. Rather, I felt like I existed in a different world. It wasn't until I had my daughter that I realized the depth and breadth of motherhood. Essentially, how all-encompassing it can be. So even understanding that when it comes to child-free and mothers, when they come together, the conversation can sometimes lack, especially when it can feel like one side is understanding and the other. I've told this story before, and it's not funny, but I made a bad call in referencing a stay-at-home mom friend when she had made a passive joke about 10 minutes before my comment. And because I do come off as really intense, but when she was like, I just stay home with the kids mostly, because we were talking about the things that they'd done. And so my head translated into coming back to that conversation going, so what do you do all day? That obviously came off very offensive. And in my head, I was like, no, that's not, I mean, like you said, you're the one who said, okay. Having to backtrack and realizing the way I said that really was offensive. And I get why, because I was like, oh, I stepped in it. That's not how I meant to say it. I was referencing back to what you said in a really bad way, in a really bad pause. I apologize. But in understanding that she absolutely felt like I was removing her importance. And that's not what I meant to do. It was more of like me coming back to, so what are you doing outside of this, because I know you are, but the way I said it was real bad. And I acknowledged that. I acknowledged that before then, because I was like, oh, rightly so. And I had to come, and I don't think I recovered well enough, because I was like, I'm not saying that you don't. I'm trying to reference back what you were saying. Hell. That conversation obviously has haunted me because it's been over 10 years, I believe. Yeah. But all of that to say is like, that's that level of like her automatically thinking that I'm putting a wall up, and then me being like, oh yeah, she's never going to understand how I'm trying to frame this, because it's coming from me, who is not in that same world. So there's this conversation of like, what happened to that friendship? And our friendship, like, she and I went opposite directions, because she also made a statement to me with like, you don't understand what it's like to have children. When we were talking about a very heavy issue about abortion, in which my response was, yeah, you don't understand what it's like to watch children who don't have good parents. And then they end up being murdered which was what kind of that conversation was. And it really was a big divide because mine was made up in that because I had not birthed children, I could not understand the depth of why she sees this abhorrent thing. And for me, as a child-free person who also sees the depth of like hell that people put kids through, and then also the expectations of women who don't have children, like that level of like your value is gone now because you choose not to have kids. Like that level. So that there was this like divide that really did break a friendship. We haven't came back. I don't know if she'll ever listen to this. If she's listening to this episode, sorry. But all this to say is like, it definitely was a bigger issue that kind of came from my decision not to have children, her decision to have children. And both of those things are very valiant. Like, I think both of those choices are completely relevant to all the things. And the free will and having that choice is beautiful. And I love children. I don't want my own. I have taken 20 years of my life to take care of children, other people's children, because I want that value. But I, see like, okay, this is not for me. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I want. But all of that to say is like when motherhood comes up, or when parenthood comes up rather, it does make a difference. Things change, and as it should. As I should not be a priority to my friend who just had a child. Why would I? Does that hurt my feelings? No. But also like it leads to what I said earlier, like they have the court in their ball because I have the freer schedule than you. Because you have all of these obligations that I don't have. So my mind as a child-free person, I'm like, hey, you do you. And then if you want to hang, I'm down. Let's go. But again, if I don't like your child, which I haven't met children, I haven't met many of, like most of my friends who have kids, I usually really like them. So I really haven't met any that I'm like that with. Trying to think. But there's also like, I didn't like some of my family members' children. I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming around to you. See you.
I have a friend's dog who's like that. Also, I just want to say,
that's fair too.
I don't want to correct this. We're not going to go back, but you definitely said court in your ball.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Ball in your court. You know what? We'll leave it because that's so me.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
But yeah, so there's so much to that. Like it is a conversation about how that does change friendships, and even other mothers, whether like being able to be friends with other mothers. Woo!
Oh, I bet. I hadn't thought about that.
That can get messy. I just know my mom felt a certain type of way about my friend's mom, and they were not cool until we became friends. And that still didn't it took a long time.
Oh.
And there were some judgments about like how this person's raised this children. So I was like, oh, okay. So that also comes into play as well.
That's true. My mom had a beef with my best friend's mom when I was growing up. But, I also was researching this, and I ran across a lot of articles written by women who were newly mothers, and they were talking about, like, where did all my friends go? And they had this quote that actually led me to texting a friend of mine who just had a kid that was like, please don't stop texting me. Please, even if I never say yes, please, please, please. So I texted this friend, and they responded and were like, yep, let's hang out this week when.
Do it now.
So it does change things. But I think a part of that article was also like, if what's holding you back is that you think I've entered a new stage in life and want nothing to do with you, please don't let that hold you back.
Right.
If it's something, but that could be the case because it's exhausting to have a child and care for a child. But if you're putting it in your head, don't put that on them,
right.
Is basically what I took from a lot of articles I read. And I had a lovely lunch, and it was great.
That's beautiful. But yeah, and that's kind of that thing too, like first-time parents, there's a lot of conversation, but I had a lot of friends, especially the younger you are too, this age does come into play, it seems, and the support system you have. It might, like if you have a great support system, it might not be so hard to go out with your child. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And having that support system, you really do need it. And that's wonderful. As you have more children, it gets a little more difficult, obviously. And you never know, because the no fault to the parent, no fault to the child, they just may have a rougher time, whether they have some kind of health situation, they have like a feeding situation, like so many things. And it's harder to go out because it causes more anxiety. Like if I was a parent with a newborn and they were fussy, you would never see me out because my anxiety could not.
Oh, yeah.
The focus, I could not.
I would be the parent that thinks Final Destination is going to happen to my baby. I don't know how, but...
I wasn't thinking that, but okay.
Yeah,
I was just thinking
something terrible will happen, even with all the precautions I put in place.
I mean, that too. But, well, yeah, Annie.
Yeah. Well, it was funny too. My friend I was talking to was like, how did they phrase it as they're lucky that they can afford daycare and their child has just started daycare. And he was like, I had a friend who told me it was better than any drug you could ever get. And I laughed. And now I know it is. It's better. You're buying time is what you're buying. Okay.
I mean, would I say like having that support system, whether it's having in-laws, grandparents who are able to support you, hopefully you're not abusing that system, being able to afford daycare, being able to afford a nanny, like all of those things, it is important, and it really should be an automatic. It should be required for parenthood if you want true parenthood, like if you want good parenting. Now, not like, I'm not saying it should be where they don't have to parent anymore.
Right.
But getting access, like getting respite. Respite is so important for every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be just being able to sleep for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Safely and comfortably. Yeah.
Well, my friend said you won't see me again until December. So I was like, I'll contact you.
But you know what? I love that. I always see people who don't have kids, but just have other like priorities and other responsibilities. I see them 3 times a year. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, I was so happy it worked out. But this episode really made me reach out to people.
I love that.
Yeah.
It made me think about people I didn't reach out. Like, I'm still way too introverted for that.
Oh, okay. Well, we already kind of briefly touched on this in the last episode. I'm going to go over it because we're kind of talking about how friendships have changed in these days and how women being more empowered, has that been better or worse for friendships? I feel like I would say better, but it has meant a loss of friendships in some instances. In other instances, you make your closer friends. So politics, yes. Politics. From American Survey Center, ending friendships over political disagreements occurs more among liberal and Democratic-leaning Americans. Democrats are twice as likely as Republicans are to report having ended a friendship over political disagreement, 20% versus 10%. Political liberals are also far more likely than conservatives are to say they are no longer friends with someone due to political differences, 28% versus 10%, respectively. No group is more likely to end a friendship over politics than liberal women are. 30% say they stopped being friends with someone because of their politics. In all, 22% of Americans who have ended a friendship cited Trump as the reason. So I think it's sort of as we said, as you get older, you cut some people out and you choose the ones that you really want to be intentional with. And so it can feel like you're losing friends, and that is painful. But on the other hand, you're probably going to make friends who are more in line with what you're thinking. Are you going to make stronger friendships with people that you already have?
Right. And I think it needs to be noted, like, I'm pretty sure you're going to probably jump into it, but like when they leave it as just liberals, it sounds like liberals are upset. For myself, as a person of color, this is my livelihood. You are choosing. Yeah. When we say that Trump is a reason, it's because his policies are putting my life at risk, and you're okay with it. because it benefits you. And you're not, since it benefits you, if you're of the conservative party, outside of like, it doesn't bother me. I don't understand why you're so bothered. It literally like, no, but for me, I am waiting, holding my breath to see if that naturalization thing that they are already talking about, that Marco Rubio has already like said that he's going to do with fake reasons to take away visas and citizenship, and being like, yeah, so what you voted for was literally me being left, like everything being taken away from me. My rights as a woman, my rights as a naturalized citizen, all of these things that I never had a choice to begin with. Like, it's a little different from just being liberal. Like, I understand what they're saying, being straightforward, but at the same time, like, the reason is not just because you voted for somebody. Because I did not feel this way about other candidates. Did I disagree with them? Did I not like them? Absolutely. But to this level that I'm like, no, it is that serious.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like and this, in my opinion, this makes absolute sense, because how can you square that with the fact that, okay, you actively voted for something that is going to harm me
physically,
and
like
people
physically
I care about. Yeah. And it is frightening. So yeah, it is definitely, that's why. It's not because we're like,
just
oh
liberal.
God,
we lost. Yeah. I'm mad at you, baby.
No.
It's also a reason why half the people on dating sites are lying about voting for Trump.
That's true.
They know
which
what it
we've
represents.
been meaning. Yeah. We've been meaning to talk about. We have been meaning to talk about that. Yeah. Well, a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I find interesting is how the idea of work friends has changed. Back when we were in office, Samantha, we went to an office. You didn't have a desk, but you still went sometimes.
I did. I dressed up way more than everybody else.
You certainly did. I spent a lot of time with my coworkers, and I count a lot of them as true, close friends. Some of them faded during the pandemic, especially, or if they got a different job, but a lot of them are still in place. They're still my friends. I've gone to their weddings, I've gone to their birthdays, I've gone to their events, and they have gone to mine. And it makes sense because you're spending a lot of time together. You're sharing a similar work experience and generally values, in this case, not always, but in our case, it's where I met friends. And historically, this is where most people in recent generations have made friends. However, I've read that Gen Z has a different attitude, wanting to keep their work life and personal life separate. That being said, some reporting suggests that Gen Zers are looking to make friends and are tired of everything being virtual, so they are returning to the office, and they are attending more professional development events. Of note, they also came of age without the social interaction and friendships of school that a lot of us had. So that comes up in a lot of the articles. I would love if people from Gen Z would write in, because I got a lot of conflicting information about this.
That's interesting. I've seen that as a demographic. I've seen also like specific communities are like, no, I don't make friends at work because I have my friends out here. I don't need work. I want that to be separate. And like to the point that if like people would get offended, but you had to be like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. And then also like the types of interests that people have, and that's outside of work, that's enough. Because if their interests are like a lot, like they are in something that's a common thing every week, book club, all those things, then they don't need that level of friendship at work. Also, sometimes when you make work friends, all you talk about is work, and you don't want that either.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about in part one, though, when you were breaking down the type of friendships.
Yes.
Like a lot of work friendships can be just the acquaintances. I like seeing you at work. But I've had several that have become more than that.
I've had a select few.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is like our office is sort of different than I would imagine a lot of offices are.
Yes.
Since it does involve a lot of collaboration, and usually people who have similar values who are really curious and interested in things.
We have creative outlets so that it opens up for a lot more like personal touches.
Yeah.
And personal opinions as opposed to like my job working for government.
Yeah. So I can't really put what our experience has been on others. So I would love to hear from other people. But in our case, we had a good office before the pandemic. We really did. We still do, but no one goes in the office. So
Right. Well, also we are now meshed with the radio side.
Yeah.
And no hate to the radio side, but it's just different.
It is. It is. Okay, so we're not going to go too in depth into this, but yeah, we have discussed making friends through a pandemic. This is something Gen Z did experience differently than a lot of us did. Several studies suggest that the COVID-19 pandemic led to a decline in American friendships. Young women reported higher rates of friendship loss, so this could be because they had, in general, more friends to lose. And I have to say, I wouldn't say I lost friends, but I definitely lost touch with a lot of friends. And we'll hear from each other every now and then. But the pandemic really did cut down on a lot of that interaction.
We did already kind of cover this with our Monday Mini, which kind of spurred into this bigger conversation. But is there a loneliness epidemic? So again, because I was very confused by all the people talking about the male loneliness epidemic. And I was like, is there a male loneliness epidemic? What's happening? Is this because of COVID? What's happening? And like I said, we talked about it. And it's not just men. Yes, there is a male loneliness epidemic, but it's actually a loneliness epidemic in general. The numbers weren't more. It's kind of interesting in that level of like, actually, women are just as lonely, if not more. If we talk about marginalized people, they're even more lonely. If we talk about the trans community right now, they feel really lonely. Like there's so many things that we could say, but for some reason, there's this honing in of the male loneliness epidemic. And in that conversation, it's like, okay, so what's happening? What are we doing? What is going on? Why are we worried about this? And the reason they're focusing on the epidemic, as in focusing on males, is mainly because of the violence that we're seeing out of that. And that's why it's called an epidemic. Like this is not just about everybody's lonely. No, this is about what's happening because of them being lonely. So an article that I read from 2024, by the way. So I want to preface this. This is a year old. So nothing is in reference to today, although we can come back and talk about it because I just discovered groypers. The hell is that? And transmaxing, which are things that I'm like, why am I learning about this? The internet is dark.
Yeah.
But again, this is part of the problem. So what essentially is being said is during the lockdown, we all saw a real big loneliness epidemic and things came bursting out, and the solution became the internet and being critically online all the time. And we've already talked about incels and how pervasive they have become, what the Reddit community has become, what 4chan community has become. And I'm saying this as these are extremists, but this is a result and why it's an epidemic. And then the new stuff, which I just kind of mentioned that I'm like, it's apparently not new, but it's just getting more famous. And I know we've talked about it with a red pill. We got to talk about it with the black pill. Like there's so many things that we need to come down to. We've talked about it with Bridget, and we have to keep talking about this because this is why it's kind of scary. And this is what we're having a conversation that, again, earlier conversation about the intergroup concept and why that's important and why we need that, because we see that men do not want to talk to other men about emotional things or anything that's of depth, but they're willing to talk about it with women. But also this layer of masculinity, hyper masculinity, that you can't be friends with a woman. But all of that to say is that they are finding their solution online, and this is the problem. So in this independent article that they wrote in 2024, they write this: a vicious cycle emerges. Boys and young men are encouraged by society to perform an unhealthy masculinity that sees them withdraw emotionally from friends and family. They feel lonely and go looking for connection and support online. They get purposely shunted towards content that reinforces those damaging gender stereotypes and further isolates them from their peers, told that women are their inferiors and men their competition. So what we have is they're lonely. So their solution is to go into content that tells them they are lonely and that's okay. Their loneliness is going to fuel their masculinity because everything else in society is bad and it is working against you. So they feed into this. And of course, we had a giant picture of Andrew Tate as one of the biggest examples, who has gone through several charges of sexual violence and rape and harassment. And men who have been his fans continue to be his fans, which is, again, part of this problem. And this leads into, is this killing women? Yes. Yes, it is. Honestly, it's killing a lot of people, including Charlie Kirk. This killed him. The level of this problem is bigger with the added disasters of COVID, again, incel and red pill. And I say added, it's kind of the result of. So that's that big problem. And there's a bigger picture that can be seen through this epidemic. So why it's called an epidemic? This is where we are. So in that same article, they kind of talk about it a little deeper. It says, many on the right have sought to associate manhood with politics. If you're a man in this country and you don't vote for Donald Trump, you are not a man, Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist, recently proclaimed. The real-world consequences of this were arguably evident this week as Donald Trump shocked the world to win the U.S. presidential election. Some 54% of men cast their ballot for the Republican, but perhaps one of the starkest demographics differences was between young men and women. Just under half, 49% of the former aged 18 to 29 voted for Trump compared to 37% of the latter. So this is a 2024 article. That was a quote from Charlie Kirk. And this concept was part of the reason for his death. And we see this is also the reason for many women's death. And that has heightened in itself as well. When we talk about femicide, when we talk about rape culture, so much fear that comes against women is this loneliness epidemic because men are told you can't have friendships, and whether it's men or women. And that's such a dangerous, dangerous place to be, obviously. And this is where we're having this conversation of why are we calling this an epidemic? And then we make it a joke. And as a feminist who is sarcastic and tired of this world, I've also made this as a joke of like, what is happening? No, he's not lonely enough type of thing. But the real problem is that we're teaching young boys to not trust anyone. So therefore, the internalized anger and guilt just comes out in violence because that is told that it's the only solution for true men is to be violent or volatile, which is unfortunate because, y'all, there's a lot to have a good night of wine or whatever drinks you want and conversations about things that you hate or love or things you cry about or don't cry about. It's so fun. Y'all are missing out. This is a part of being human.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed this growing up where I felt like I had a really good group of friends and my brothers didn't.
Yeah.
Like my brothers had almost bullies.
Yes.
As friends.
My brothers do. Or they were the bullies. Like the entire time they were doing jokes or like pranks on each other that would seem really violent or like humiliating. I'm like, why is this y'all's friendship? This is really odd.
Yeah. I saw that too. And they would tell me about it. And I'm like, that's not your friend. That's
And they would tell me like, you don't get it. You're so sensitive. You're just a girl. I'm like,
I'm a girl with friendships that don't do that.
Right. That I trust. I don't know what's happening here. But that's the thing. Like, this is that conversation that we need to have more of. Again, about that childhood level of understanding that it's okay. This is what happens when we have this gender difference and gendered makeup in childhood. When we say boys need to be with boys will be boys, girls need to be with girls, and this is your stereotype and this is your stereotype. Make sure you stay in this. And then we have a lot of frustration.
Yep. I'll say it before. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Adolescence, that The whole show is about this.
Hey, they got a lot of awards, so.
The whole show is about how he has friends, but they're not really good friends. He doesn't have any friends who are girls. And he's online all the time.
I mean, that would be exactly. I guess it just feels too dark, but I probably should watch it.
It's very dark, but it has a fun thing. I shouldn't phrase it that way because it's so much talent. It's amazing. Everything is in one shot. Every episode's in one shot.
Yeah.
So it's very visually interesting. It's very oof.
All right. I'll work myself up to it.
It's okay if you don't.
But
I'll tell you all about it.
Yes. With all of that, with that happening, and then that's blib, we should talk about how technology has influenced friendships.
Yes. And this is also another one I think we should come back and go more into depth because I didn't get to go into. There are now a lot of dating apps for friends.
She's putting quotes, y'all.
Yeah, heavy quotes.
She's putting quotes. You're saying it, but you don't see it. They don't see it yet.
I've heard there's a quote voice, and I'm trying to do it, but I think so. But anyway, yeah, there are apps for making friends and even best friends, like the Bumble BFF app.
Yeah,
it was really fun reading accounts from people who have used these apps who were like, well, that one didn't work out. I could tell we weren't compatible, but it was for a friendship.
Right.
So that's something we're going to have to come back and talk to because I actually got consumed by this other aspect that has impacted my friendships, I have to say. So the pandemic really highlighted just how important tech can be for maintaining friendships. I'm assuming most of you downloaded so many different apps and browser extensions during the pandemic to keep in touch with people. But one thing I've noticed in my friendships that can cause some tension is texting and texting habits. Does someone never text back?
No, I don't.
No. Or do they never text at all? If you're trying to make plans and they never respond, what do you do?
Oh, no.
I have a friend that says no response is the response. The response being no. But if that's the case, then we need to establish a timeline, okay?
Yeah. My no response is me. I'm thinking on it.
Which is fair. I do that too. But if the non-response is no, when can I accept it as a no? Because sometimes I've done that, and then later they'll text me and be like, "Oh, I want to go," and I'm like, "Well, it's sold out, and I've already given the ticket to someone else," and then they get mad at me.
Okay,
like, that's
on them. Like that's a fine line. Like if you don't respond and it's closing the time and you never say, "Let me think about it," or any of those situations, then that's on me. Like because I am that one. I am that person who does not respond. If I don't immediately respond, you're probably not going to get a response for a while because I forgot.
mm-hmm.
Or I'm assuming it doesn't have anything to do with me, even though I'm in this group text. I really hate group text, y'all. Or 3, I'm thinking about it. And I will let you know, but before the time ends.
So we should establish a time. Listeners, write in. What is the acceptable time before? I mean, I guess I could text and be like, if you haven't responded to me by this time.
I do. Yeah. If it's happening to me, I will ask you before I do it.
Because sometimes tickets are on the line and they're going to sell out. So I need to know.
Yeah.
I need to know. And yes, I have stopped inviting people to stuff. If I never hear from you, I do stop. And then I have found out they're mad about it, typically through someone else. So I through this research, I found an article, again, I think it was about the childhood, like a motherhood, having a kid. If you just texted me and said, no, but please don't stop inviting me, I would appreciate that, actually.
Yes, I usually will. I'll be like, hey, I'm sorry. I know I'm an introvert and don't come out, but don't stop inviting me.
I would be happy. I'd be thrilled. But if you never respond, then at a certain point, I'm just like, okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down, and it's nothing.
It is disappeared.
Yeah. And in recent years, there has been a lot written about this and even studies done. The general consensus is that a friendship that almost entirely relies on texting is still a friendship as long as the exchange is valued by all parties, especially when done frequently and when you're sharing like mundane life stuff. Many people have also reported enjoying it because it's easier. It can help ease social anxiety for some. Some people have texting anxiety. And there's more time to formulate your response, which I do appreciate. It can help maintain otherwise unlikely friendships. I know some people who still text people they haven't seen in person for years. Texting has even been cited as potentially easing the male friendship crisis and has been scientifically studied for its positive benefits, which there are positive benefits. Recent research has shown that even a brief check-in with a friend you haven't contacted in a while has measurable benefits, especially if it's unexpected. So while a lot of us, me, hesitate to text at first, science backs up the plus sides. And this is where I texted 2 people I haven't texted for a while, and I've seen both of them this week.
Wow, Anney. I'm loving that this episode has spurred your friendship times, face-to-face times. I love it. I will say, like, that for me, that whole level of anxiety, when you have really smart, witty friends, and then you're all on a text thread and you're not as funny as them or not as quick as them, I stop. And Caroline is a part of this group, and they are so quick-witted. Boo, we used to do it on email. They used to do an email chain where they would send complaints and gifts. It took me forever to figure out how to do gifts. As in fact, I still don't think I know how to do it on email. And so it would just come up as like, an attachment.
Yeah.
Or it would blow up into the whole email. So it never, I was fearful after that. I'm like, I cannot get on par. I'm not as funny as them online. I'm funny in face-to-face. Online, not as witty. So like for me, that is my anxiety because they're so funny and so quick and so like quippy that I'm like, that's funny. And then I move on. And also because other people's phones are iPhones and mine's an Android, they were not compatible for the longest time. So sometimes they would not even get my messages, or if I was sending us something, they couldn't read it. It would just be an X, and same vice versa. So it was just frustrating at that point.
Yeah. That has also caused a rift in some, not a rift, that's a serious term, but it's caused a misunderstanding in a friendship group I have.
Miscommunications, for sure.
Where they're like, but it turns out it was because we had a Apple group and an Android group, and they weren't getting each other's messages.
I'm telling you what, that market, they want you to not be friends anymore.
Oh,
Apple's
they do.
like, we don't like Android. Android's like, who? Who's Apple?
That is a thing. And it's I've gotten caught up in it before where I'm like, is this friend mad at me? She hates me. Everything is ruined. And I try to look into, that's one of the first things I check. Is there a problem with the compatibility of, right now, the text messages between Apple and Android? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it has been. So, all of those positive things being said, there are some things to watch out for. One is generally try to be present with the people you're with. So if you're hanging out with someone in person and it isn't one of those we're going to chill and do our own thing hangs, then hang out with them and try not to text someone else so much. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. I hate it. It makes me wonder why I'm there at all. Like I could be doing something else, but instead I'm at a dinner table and you're texting someone else.
Oh, yeah.
No. But if you're just hanging out and you've kind of established like, yeah, I'm just going to do my own thing, you do your own thing, that's its own. But if I have made plans and we've gone to a place and that's what happens, no, I hate that. I hate it.
Yeah.
Not news to anyone. But some emotional nuances can get lost in text, emojis, GIFs, or not. This can lead to some misunderstandings. I have a friend whose messages read as so terse. I'm always like, is she mad? But then I saw her texting in action, and she does a lot of it through voice to text in her car. And I'm like, okay, got it.
I'm also very abrupt. Like, I don't need...
You are.
I just like, yes, no. And I don't mean it. But that's just the end of the sentence. I'm not trying to be abrupt. I'm just like, yeah. Okay, bye.
Oh yeah, I've had to learn this with you. I feel confident in our friendship.
Sorry.
No, I feel confident in our friendship where I'm like, no, I get her. And you respond if I'm like asking you, I want to do this. You're pretty good at like, okay.
Yes. If it has something scheduled.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. I try to respond with gifts, but eventually it also is partially like, someone has to end this. I'm gonna stop.
It's all good.
I've thought that before. Not with you, like, in general, where it goes back and forth with like, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like with a text, there's nothing. So I'm like, I'm done.
Someone does have to end it. I agree. I don't think you're wrong.
And it's usually me. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you. I love you too. Speaking of the male friendship crisis, as beneficial as texting can be for men, other articles highlighted how men aren't the best at texting back. Not just men, to be clear, most notoriously bad texters in my group are women. But I also have more women friends than I have men friends, so. Being worried about being too available or enthusiastic. So waiting to respond to a group text because you don't want to be the first one to say yes, even if you're excited and want to go. I run into this all the time where I'm like, I have my answer. I don't know if I want to be the first one to respond though.
I'm more of the opposite of like, who's going to say no first? I can't be too eager to say no. Or that I'm busy.
But to be honest, again, if you just like were up front and told me no, I'd be like, okay, got it. It's the non-response that really gets me.
But the thing about that is, and I'm gonna put this out here, I know that my moods change, so I don't want to respond till it's closer to time to know how I feel. Because it might change. I might be ready to go and so roaring, let's do this. This is the one time a year that I'll stay past 11 p.m. But I don't know about it until that closer to time. I don't want to change my mind.
Oh, I get you. I have what I would say enthusiastic Annie and depressed Annie. Neither of them should be answering the text immediately. I need a more stable one to be like, okay, I'm in a good place. And yes, I want to go. No, I don't want to go. Because enthusiastic me might screw me over. Depress me.
Exactly. Both of those things. And I feel like I'm being very defensive in this category. And I to my friends, I'm sorry.
This is all about you, Samantha. I just wanted to confront you.
I come to Jesus.
There are tips online about how to keep friendships healthy if you're a bad texter.
Okay, tell me.
Samantha.
I'm ready.
Or are friends with a bad texter. And there are also people like my previously mentioned friend who have a very strong opinion about not responding being okay. They don't think it's a problem. There's also some hand-wringing about digital friendships in general, but a lot of it feels really outdated. A lot of stuff I was reading about it felt really outdated. I was like,
it's like a chat room.
They were basically just like, this isn't real. And I feel like you can have a good friend that you interact through digitally, and it's real. It's a good friend. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of it was outdated. If you want to look up those tips, you can find them online. I'm not going to go over them, but they exist. All right. And very briefly, to wrap this up, childhood friendships to adult friendships, which I have some experience with.
You're really good at it. I have one remaining.
From your, how old?
2nd grade.
Yeah. Mine is generally, I would say we solidified in middle school. But we hang out every year. We text each other pretty often. When it comes to keeping childhood friendships into adulthood, one of the biggest factors is that thing, proximity, that we've been talking about. According to the American Survey Society, quote, childhood friendships are ubiquitous among the public. 2/3 of Americans say they have a friend whom they have known since childhood. Yet despite the prevalence of these types of friendships, they have become less common as Americans age. More than 3/4 of young adults have a childhood friend compared to 60% of seniors. childhood friendships are particularly prevalent among Black Americans. Nearly 8 in 10 Black Americans report having a friend whom they have known since childhood. These types of friendships are significantly less common among white and Hispanic Americans. I was kind of surprised to read. I don't know why. I thought they were rarer than all of this.
I wonder, again, like you have the one, and I'm wondering how many are reconnected, because I really feel like Facebook really brought on a new era of connecting. So when Facebook first came out, that was the whole thing, was going to see what happened to your schoolmates or your college friends. Like that was the intent. MySpace even, but Facebook was the big one. I feel like MySpace was different.
Yeah.
And I think did it come after Facebook?
I feel like MySpace was first, but I'm not sure.
I can't remember. But for some reason, because Facebook really was the Twitter of that time. You just did status where you didn't even tell you where you were, I think, but you had to be a part of college. That was it was a college associated group. Mm-hmm. And the kids are like, what? It's just a misinformation machine now. Well, once upon a time, it was about connecting to different groups within colleges. So UGA, like grads, you had to be in college. You had to show what school you were with when it first happened. And I remember it really connected to all of my high school, middle school people, and going back to trying to find people, reconnecting, which, by the way, is a whole joke, by the way, in 30 Rock, about that sites like that are only used to reconnect or hook up with your crushes from high school type of thing, which was funny. Mm-hmm. But like it really did. You kind of went and checked, and that opened up seeing childhood friends, which you may have lost touch with, especially if you went to different colleges and moved on, what that looked like. And I wonder how many of these friendships may be based on reconnecting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any listeners, write in if you have the friend group I'm thinking of, we mostly stayed in touch. We didn't connect over Facebook, reconnect, but that makes a lot of sense.
So my friend and he and I have been friends for a long time. We were in the same area, so we often saw each other, and then just kept being connected because I think we both were like-minded and saw how people were changing, and essentially through Facebook as well. And that kept us connected because we're like, ooh, another person like me that's different from this group of people. And it was nice to see. And then his partner, who I like very much, really loved our friendship. And for her to see that, she encouraged him to keep more connected with me. And he was like me, like love every time they come through, we see each other. But we weren't necessarily, because I don't even think he was ever on Facebook. Nothing thinking about it. But we were outside of that. But there was another person, we never hung out, but we reconnected through messages and be like, oh my God, again, you and I are like-minded when everybody else is this. So it's nice to see. But it's hard to keep it, but because we only see each other a couple of times a year, if that.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting you say that, because my mom, when I was talking about how she, after my dad died, has found friends or reconnected with friends. She doesn't have Facebook, but she did reach out. She somehow found her high school friends, and got back with them. So it wasn't like they had been talking to each other or anything for years, but she reached out, and now they hang out a couple times a year. And okay, yeah. I would say if your general values and path on life are compatible, that is one way you're gonna keep your childhood friends. Studies show that childhood trauma and friendship fights during that time period of childhood can be hard to let go of, which means that it can be difficult to keep that childhood friend. But if you can, and if as adults you're still compatible friends, as in you're supportive friends, these friendships can be incredibly valuable and rewarding. You basically have an entire friend-elect, and all of these, you have all of these memories, you have all of these things. That being said, if a relationship is toxic, don't exhaust yourself fighting for it. Just don't do it.
That's a different episode.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of us have been told, like, if you fail this childhood friendship, you're a failure. If you failed, it's not. If it's not working, it's not working.
Changes happen.
Changes happen, and life is short. And I think being intentional with your friends is great. I think being like, you okay? This is not for me anymore. And yeah, with my childhood friend group, we do try to do one or two trips a year where we catch up with each other and then random things in between. But it is that thing we've been talking about where we might not see each other that often, but when we do, it feels like, oh, hasn't been that long at all. We just connect. So, oh my goodness, we had a lot to say about friendships.
Yes, and we have a lot more to say, but we're going to do those on a different episode because we unexpectedly, but kind of expectedly, ended up saying a lot because there's a lot to be said when it comes to friendship, and it's why it's so important. We haven't even talked about that part. Like, we didn't talk about any of the benefits, but we have talked about some of the detriments of not having good friendships, and I think that's part of the reason that we need to make sure we are encouraging that in our culture.
Yes. And I would really love to hear from listeners. Doing this research, I was motivated to reach out to people, but I also read about a lot of interesting things people do to meet new friends, just find new people. And I just thought it was so fascinating. So I would love to hear from listeners about any of that. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at hello@stuffmonevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have new merchandise at Cotton Bureau, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christine, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you, friend.
Yes. And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.